that going, because it really is all about making sure that our values are protected. Okay, more announcements coming up in a bit here, but let's bring in, if he's ready, let's bring in Brian Almon, officially a contributing editor to Idaho Signal. Brian is at the Capitol. Brian, how you doing down there? What's the scuttlebutt these days?
Well, it's great to be back in the Capitol and great to be here on Idaho Signal. It feels like the first day of school. Everybody's coming back from all across the state, ready to get some work done. So it's an exciting atmosphere. There's a buzz here. I've talked to several folks, and they're ready to get to work. The freshmen, I think, mostly are feeling a little surreal. You know, they've been campaigning for the last year and a half, 2 years even, and now they're finally here, and now it's real.
Yeah, that's always a thing for the freshmen, is like once you finally get to that first day, it's like, wow, everything is happening. And you see the lobbyists, bumping around with their little green badges, and, the governor's coming into the house to give their state of address. It's a good thing that things kind of like slowly get going here. But you have been, you have been such a huge asset to folks who follow politics in Idaho, not just to learn information and to gain knowledge from it, but to also kind of steer debate too. I mean, you're really effective at that, and I'm just so thrilled that we've been able to add you to the program and get a lot more insight from you. Can you kind of walk us through a little bit of what you expect to hear from the governor and what you're hearing around the Capitol today?
Well, I caught the governor's little press gaggle the other day, where he came in and shared some stuff with members of the mainstream press, I should say. And he was careful not to spoil his own speech, but he did drop hints. He's going to obviously Idaho Launch, the Launch Grant is one of his big signature programs, and he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about what he sees as the successes of that program and why it should continue and perhaps even expand. He's going to talk about taxes. I think the governor is, always been willing to cut taxes. I know that's Speaker Moyle's big push every year. So there's going to be some of that. He did promise a surprise, which with relation to election integrity. So I have no idea what that is, and I'm looking forward to hearing what it is. Obviously, school choice is on the menu. That's been a big push the last couple of years, especially from the conservative side, but it's really gained a lot of steam. I just came from the Mountain States Policy Center's Education Choice Forum with former Arizona Governor Doug Ducey lauding his state's school choice system, which is ESAs and tax credits and all sorts of things. But Representative Wendy Horman came on afterward and introduced that they're going to be pushing a bill that's going to be a tax credit, $5,000, capped at $50 million. So it's a very small, very modest entry into the school choice system. The governor did mention that he has something on that, but he mentioned sideboards. So we'll see what his plan is and how it compares to the legislature's plan.
Yeah, very interesting. I know we had, I believe it was, was last year 1038? No, it was the year before, I think.
That was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
2 years ago was the
ago.
ESA, and then last year was a tax credit, very similar to the one that Representative Horman and Senator Ben Hartog have for this year. But,
yeah.
The makeup of the legislature has changed enough that it probably will have some solid support.
Yeah, and we're gonna dive into that a little bit later. But the bill that Representative Horman and Senator Hartog had last year, it got voted down in committee, in the Rev and Tax Committee in the House. Very narrowly was it not sent forward. I have the I lost my notes. Oh no, here it is. I have the committee breakdown from last year compared to this year, and a couple of people that voted against it are no longer there. They were either voted out or they retired. Not retired, but they were voted out. So hopefully, we'll make. That's what elections have consequences, right? That famous phrase. So hopefully we get to see that this year. I wanted to ask you again, when it comes to the thing that you saw today. We have a clip from Senator from Utah who spoke about their program. Now they have an ESA program. They don't do the tax credit, right?
I don't recall off the top of my head what Utah did. I stepped out briefly and came in halfway through the Utah senator's presentation.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's play this clip. We have this clip, right, Jeremy?
Explain the specifics of the Utah program and what Utah offers so that legislators who are thinking about different ideas know what our friends down south are doing?
Yeah. Thank you. I was worried you were going to ask me to explain the quadratic equation, and I'm not sure I'm interesting enough to do that for them. Basically, what we've done is we've appropriated into a separate fund a education savings account that allows students to apply for that program. And in using in that application, they can apply to use that funds to go to a private school that meets their interest and need. And in that private school curricula, the private schools, a lot of negotiation went around what reporting can be demanded from government entities as to how the funds can be used. We opted for giving private schools more freedom in the beginning, and not having an onus reporting requirement at all for the private schools that are receiving money. That being said, we're making sure that I'm trying to think the elements of it that would be super important to you folks and be relevant, but we are making sure that the money is being spent, that the student got enrolled. We have those minimum criteria that have to be reported, that type of deal, but not necessarily attendance. But that's it. I mean, it's a pretty simple program, and I think it's capped at $8,000 a student. At least it was this last year. I think there's a requirement or a look at escalating that amount, based on inflationary measures. Utah's in an interesting position. I'm not sure. Does Idaho have a net positive student growth this year? Does anybody know? You guys do, right? You're still seeing an influx of California refugees. Sorry, we're trying to close the borders. We can't figure out how to do it. Even in Utah, we're struggling with the same issue, right? But what's interesting is, this year, last year was the first year, and this year I think is the same. We actually have a reduction in student population, which is actually really sad to me. That's a whole nother issue. We can talk about demographic collapse that is coming if we don't start encouraging our kids to have more kids, or making it affordable for them to have kids. That's a whole nother issue. Anyway, but that's the basics of the program. I'm happy to get more in depth, but I think that's basics of what it's at.
Brian, two things here. One, on a serious note, the ESA version of school choice versus the tax credit, right? And Utah, apparently they went with the ESA version, and that doesn't really seem to fly too much here in Idaho. It seems like the tax credit is the way to go. What's your take on one versus the other?
Well, it was interesting. Somebody in the audience asked Representative Foreman, why not just go the full Arizona model, which is full universal school choice, however many people want to do it. And she said, well, we're still, we're new at this. Arizona's been doing it for a long time. So, this is baby steps. This is the first step. You've got various interest groups. You have the Democrats, not many of them, but there's still a few, and they're going to vote against anything school choice. They want public schools or bust. And then you have some people in the Republican Party who, I think feel the same way. They are not adverse to the teachers' unions, I should say, and they are very much supporters of the public system, and don't like the idea of allowing people to get out of that. And then you have on the other side, you have the homeschool community who they're up in arms about anything that even hints at government oversight of what they do with their educational choices. So it's like a minefield that they have to navigate. They tried the ESA bill 2 years ago, and that got to the Senate floor, but did not get much support. They tried the tax credit bill last year, which I think had more broad support, but it didn't get out of committee. The tax credit advantage is that you can choose not to apply for it. If you're already putting down your child on your tax return for the federal child tax credit, then just check another box if you happen to homeschool or use private schools or micro schools or some other non-public system. It's a much easier, and maybe it feels like it's not so much going to the government and asking for permission for things, which is one of the arguments that homeschool families made for the ESA option in 2023. But then you have everybody saying, well, we don't want to take money from the public schools. that this Representative Foreman's bill, it actually sets aside money from a different fund, so it's not actually taking it from the public schools. But of course, if children disenroll from the public schools, then that's, by definition going to take resources away from them, and that's where the fight is.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing, right? Like if people can have have an easier avenue to pull their kids out of public school, they're going to do it. I mean, some parents, right? Which goes to the other point that the senator brought up, which is like, oh, we're seeing a reduction in enrollment, and everybody seems to think that this is because of declining birth rates, Brian. But people keep showing up to school board meetings and complaining about the woke nature of public schools and taking their kids out of school. I don't think it's because 10 years ago people were having a half a kid less.
Oh, what?
Oh, did we lose Brian there?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I need to just tell people not to call me while I'm on here. Whatever the cause, Governor Ducey of Arizona, the former governor, he talked about how schools were not doing their jobs. You have these public schools that are supposed to educate students, but they're not doing it. People are coming out of this not able to read or not able to do math. And so, well, obviously what we're doing is not working, and just giving it more money is not going to help. Let's try something different. Let's give parents options. And then, of course, you had the woke stuff, especially during COVID, when they turned on their Zoom calls and suddenly saw exactly what these students were being taught and decided that that's not for them either. Why should students, just because their parents can't afford to enroll them in a private school or can't afford the time and energy needed to homeschool, why should they be trapped in a school that is not educating them and is in fact indoctrinating them in ideologies that are contrary to their family's values? Now, some people like their public schools, and they can, like Ducey said, if you like your public school, you can keep your public school, to paraphrase Barack Obama. But some schools are not working for those students. So let's have a system that just gives more opportunity and more flexibility. And I that's where I'm coming from. That's where I think a lot of other people here in the Capitol are coming from, and we'll see if it gets through.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Brian. Well, we'll let you get at it. I know it's a big day down at the Capitol, but Brian's gonna be with us hopefully daily, and he'll be writing articles with us over on X. So the article feature on X is awesome. So we're gonna utilize that for sure. So Brian, where can people follow you to keep tabs on your other work as well?
Well, gemstatechronicle.com is obviously where I publish my stuff. I've also got the Idaho Insider there. It lists every single one of the legislators and our executive board officials with links and information about them. It's a great resource. But for today, go to @GemStateBrian on X. I will be live tweeting whatever I'm doing.
Fantastic. All right, Brian, we'll see you. We'll check in with you a little bit later. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. All right, folks, a little bit more to come. So stick around. We'll be right back.